All right, we are here with Brody, who drives Overdone. And I need the top 3 most important parts to a proper burnout car.
Oh, definitely the blower.
Okay.
But NA's cool too. In Australia, presentation, not so much here. They look at it differently, but that to us is really cool as well. Definitely driveline. Got to have your driveline right. Got to get it in, get it out, like get the instant smoke, get all the stuff.
So what's a good driveline? Parts.
Well, most cars you'll find will be a 9-inch turbo 400 power glide,
Okay.
and that's for instant smoke. Like we jump on it, bang, we're there, we're up.
What are you running?
Mine personally is a turbo 400 with a 9-inch rear, and I'm 3.0 geared, so I just jump on it in second, then just bang top as soon as I get on it, and off she goes. Instant smoke.
Okay, methanol or race gas?
Meth or death. Yeah, meth or death.
Meth or death.
You want to keep it together? Methanol.
I see you're running electronic injection. How many injectors are you running?
This has 16, so it's got 8,000 cc up top, which basically just cools the blower, does a bit of top injection. In the bottom, I've got 5,500 cc per injector. It's severely overkill for the engine, but no matter what happens, they can correct. Like they'll do whatever this engine asks for, pretty much.
Absolutely pissin' fuel. As we've learned, all of our Australians here today, absolute meth heads. Let's go. When starting with the injection hat here,
Yep.
Is there anything special that you do to set these up? I noticed that on Zach's, he's got, it's cupped off for air.
I fit the blanks to it. Okay. Yeah, I fit the blanks to his. So each engine will demand a different amount of air. So mine in particular, like I fell S-Fest blanked off both mine. I put 2 in, too much.
Okay.
So I pulled out 1, and now we're like,
They're trying to do that so it kind of restricts the airflow, so it's not just like a giant on-off switch, right?
So initially, for me to sit at 8,000 or 7,600 RPM, I was at 8.3% throttle.
Ah.
Yeah. So in order for me to get a little bit of control, right now I think I sit on about 63, and that gets me 8,000.
I see.
Much more user-friendly.
Nice. Let's talk about like protection things, like the screen. What do you call it? Gauze?
Pretty much every blown car in Australia will have a screen in them. You'll very rarely find them not. So in mine in particular, mine's just in the heart. And it just basically, let's say I was dumb enough not to put Loctite on my bolt or something like that, and it does end up in the engine, it's just going to bounce around there while I do my burnout until I go, oh, idiot.
Nice. Or chunks of rubber, or
That's right.
any other thing, like
any foreign matter that can make its way into the heart, which is literally anything. Can be stopped, yeah.
Okay. Now, one of the things I've always noticed, there's a few things on most of these pro-level Australian burnout cars. One, it's always a sick dry sump, and there's a clear view, right? And we'll get to that in a second. But the one thing that I always liked is I would always see guys running EGTs in all of the exhaust banks.
It has a base fueling on it, like every ECM will, but then it switches over when I'm like completely at RPM. It pretty much switches over to correction on exhaust temperature. Now, I won't give away the actual numbers for that because that's, incredibly important to my tuner and myself and pretty much anyone, but mine will compensate on heat. So let's say I have a cylinder that's had a drama, it started to burn up, it's starting to have problems. It will actually start compensating on the temperatures all the way through the range. Once it reaches a maximum value that I have and Dale has preset in the tune, it will basically dump a set percentage of fuel in there to try and protect that cylinder. If that cylinder cannot be protected and it keeps getting hot, it'll basically shut that cylinder down, and that's the end of it. And I'll obviously drop a cylinder, it'll tell me on the dash, and I can pull up, and I go, okay, we've got an issue, we need to look at it. And this all happens before the engine comes out the bottom.
You're going to be spending 40, 50, 60 to 100 grand on a motor. You probably want to keep it together. Here's another thing. So, talking about keeping it together, keeping it safe, I mentioned the dry sump system and these clear view filters. This is amazing stuff that more people should be running here in the States. Tell me, like, your little trick for not just the clear view, but the heater too.
Yeah, so we have, in this particular system, this is a Savvy 5-stage system, which is on the more serious side of the dry sump setups, but for what we do, it's perfect. The scavenge side has a B&R clear view in it, but we also have increased the capacity of the tank, and it has a heater in the bottom of the tank. Now, that heater serves 2 purposes. One is to get the oil up to temperature before we skid the car. So essentially, we have our oil at 80 degrees Celsius. I'm not too sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's already at temperature before we even start. So we're not going out there with cold oil. Yes. We're not damaging anything. We're not, and it boils all the moisture out of the methanol that we've got ended up in there idling around, moving around the pits, whatever it may be. But it does end up there on any sort of blown setup like that or any methanol setup. So yeah, basically that system will just clean the oil right out. It goes back to fully gold, and yeah, she's ready to roll.
one of the things I've noticed with E85 and then worse on methanol because they're dumping so much into it is you'll have so much contamination that a lot of these guys will have to just change the oil after every run, right?
That's right, yeah. So yeah, I've done 3, 2, 4, 6 or 7 sets on the oil that I just dropped before, and the oil was fine.
Oh,
yeah, we do it obviously because oil's cheap and engines are expensive.
There you go. So take care of your shit, kids. This is the type of stuff that we like to see. Now, obviously, they're running a lot of different. I like the cam-driven pump you're running here. So I noticed, is that you got a mechanical pump here, but is there also an electric pump from from the sump?
So from the back, it has a carby style lift pump, and all that does is fill that front tank. That front tank actually has a float level, which will travel up and down. So while I'm idling around, you'll actually hear the rear pump engage and disengage as I'm moving because the float will open and close, and it's just gravity fed. So that pump there is actually a mechanical pump from when it was a mechanical vehicle, but that's a 760 pump. It does plenty. So we actually left that pump there and thought, let's just go through there, run a mechanical regulator, keep the tank, take the fittings out of it, and now we're EFI.
And then what sort of fuel pressure do you run on something like this?
Idles around 60, 70. When I'm up at anywhere up to 110, 115 PSI.
God damn, okay. That's a lot more than I expected. Last thing, what blower are you running?
This is actually a GM 6V71. So it is essentially choking the engine.
Yeah.
Like we're still making over 1,000 horse, but that blower is way too small for that engine.
Yeah.
We did want to go 1070 before we come, but we had time and we redid the whole setup and it was all getting very expensive. So for now at 671, it will get moved to my partner's car when we get home.
I see, and I noticed that it's got kind of a small pulley on there because I guess you got to turn it a lot to, just keep it up with the airflow you need.
Yeah, it's all the overdriven.
Okay.
Yeah, so it runs about 15 PSI, this one.
Okay, and then also, do you run anything special? Like, I know since you're running methanol, you probably don't run like Teflon blower blades or anything like that?
No, this one isn't. I wanted to sort of, newbies in Australia rebuilt the blower when I first bought it, and we sort of just kept it super simple.
Okay.
Because we weren't ever intending to do any of this, and now here we are.
Well, you know what? You're doing it right.
It works. So why mess with what works? And that's where we're at. Like I could roll down to BDS and buy another blower and chuck a 1071 on it, but then I've got to restart my whole tune. Dale from Tune by Dale will hate me because he's got to restart the whole tune as well. Like, and it's just problems we don't want to deal with. It works. We're just going to leave it.
Hell yeah. Well, hey, thank you for walking us through the secret sauce.
Cheers,
we'll get into more of this later on. We can't give you all the goods. But stick around. We're going to get more secrets out of these boys so you can start building it yourself, damn it.